there with Michael Jackson.
Let's go. Yeah, that is. That's Jesus speech. Okay. Welcome to the Quorum episode 12, which is filming law enforcement. This is a show that I have been looking forward to since the beginning of the Quorum. I realized that this would be a big part of giving a perspective from the other side, a side that is usually put off to the side, is dismissed as not actual, not real, not a truth, but truly it is. And we have some people today that actually participate in this every single day to make sure that law enforcement that are on the street in City Heights are being watched. Every step that they take, every move that they make, when there's a call, they're there. And this is something that, personally, I champion this. I think that it is very brave of you to put yourself in harm's way, and most of the time you're not received with you're not embraced. And it turns out to be more of a verbal conflict with the law enforcement while they're working, while they know that it's within your rights to be doing what you're doing. You're not violating any laws while doing it. So by saying that, I'd like to thank you guys very much for joining us for this show. My name is Apollo Olongo, brother of Alfred Olongo, who was gunned down in El Cajon in 2016. And that has transpired to many efforts to establish organizations and methods of getting out information about what is really happening from the perspective of individuals that go through these wrongdoings. There's a lot of information that comes from conglomerate media from a perspective that does not represent ours technically, and it does not give our voice, our thoughts, and our perspectives towards these situations. So this show, Quorum, gives a platform for individuals that are going through this situation to be able to get that information out there so that the listeners can understand from a perspective of an experiencer. And hopefully, we hope to touch bases with their morality so that they can understand that what is happening can be changed. And we are fighting for that to make sure that it does. And we'll continue to grow until it happens. So I'd like to hand the microphone over now to my good friend Tasha to introduce herself and give you guys a briefing on what's going to go down on the show.
Thank you. My name is Tasha Williamson. I'm a community advocate, civil rights activist, special needs advocate as well. I fight for many of the people in the community that cannot fight for themselves. And so what we're going to talk about is the fact that we all went to a National City Council meeting last Tuesday, and the use of show of force and use of force that was used, and the violations of people's right to film and my right to see an attorney at my bedside that was denied to me, wasn't even told to me. We're going to kind of go over all of that, and then also talk about we still don't have the footage publicly viewed for what happened to Earl McNeil while in care and custody of the National City Police Department as well as the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you very much, Tasha. I look forward to hearing more about what transpired there. I watched the video like thousands of San Diegans and people in California, and I want to thank you for standing up and saying the words that you said. Mm-hmm. And it was pure truth. It was really what everyone is feeling. It was the anger that had built up, and you said it in a way that was intellectual and intelligent, and I think you got the message across to them. And we'll continue to do that until legislations can reflect what we truly believe as people that have to deal with this on a daily basis.
And I also think that it was the way in which the chief conducted himself that kind of set it off. Mm-hmm. You didn't have that. When your brother was murdered, the chief didn't respond in that way in El Cajon. Mm-hmm. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't smirking. Mm-hmm. He had a professional look about him whenever he spoke. And this chief has not.
Yeah, he carried himself like he's untouchable. He had that arrogance of knowing what the law is and knowing how they have covered all their tracks. So he can just sit there and smile. What you're going to do. That's his attitude. So we'll touch more on that. Thank you very much, Sasha. Next up is my good friend Art Foose. Go, Art.
What a week, what? So
First of all, I want to say I'm glad that Tasha's okay. I want to say that I'm glad that Raphael's okay. I'm okay. I'm glad that everything turned out, all right, because it could have turned out much worse.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I do want to touch on is that Kat and I were there to film the town hall, and when we realized Tasha was going to get arrested, our intention was to make sure that we followed her at least to the police car to make sure that they didn't hurt her, and we were physically denied
obstructing our right to film.
Yeah, there was a corporal there who basically blocked he grabbed me and then blocked the exit twice, so that nobody could leave.
Yeah.
Which is I don't think it was handled terribly. But everyone who's involved except for the police is here today to talk about that as well.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Art. We're looking to touch more base on that particular event, like I said. So I'd like to introduce Kat, her as Wildcat. So Kat, please take the time that you have to introduce the gentlemen that have come with you today and the hard work that you guys
Absolutely. I got my Copwatch fam here today. I'm Kat Mendoza with United Against Police Terror. We do boots on the ground Copwatch in the area of East San Diego, City Heights. Our motto is preventing what police do instead of waiting to react what police do. It's very vital to preserve the lives of our community and let them know that we're here before tragedy would strike. I mean, our goals are de-escalation, but also let the police know if they've acted up, if there are cops that have killed somebody, we definitely let them know when they're still in our neighborhood. So with me is my partner in life, partner in crime, Aaron Leaf with IRATE Productions, UAPT, and he, he's just the rock. He's kind of the rock with the whole thing. He tracks the data and he does a lot of, identifying, killer cops in our community, whether they have retired or not, and also tracking many of the stolen lives that you see on the banner. I think we're up to about 857. I'd have to double check though, because there's just so many. And because we track, we don't want to track, but because we track, there's so many. That's why we really have to take it in our own hands and not trust police to provide the transparency that we are looking for. To my right is my boy Jesse. He's Copwatch trainee. He also does security, and he also works on as far as alt-right and hate groups, because I know they've gotten very loud, especially with Trump in office. So a lot of stuff regarding security culture you can probably touch on. So
definitely, we'll hear a lot more from them as the show continues. Right now, I would like to pass the microphone over to Art for his historical anchor. This is
We also have Raphael.
We also have Raphael here. He was also part of the incident that happened as they were taking Tasha down the stairs. They either kicked him or did something to him, but they violently got him out of the way, and then
he's here to
threw him out. Yeah, he'll tell the story.
He'll tell the story, definitely. Thank you for joining us, Raphael. Definitely, we'll have Art drop this historical anchor, go to a commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll be able to touch bases with Raphael's story, hear more from Jesse, and listen up to what Aaron has going on, and definitely dissect what happened in the National City Council meeting and the events and how they were carried out, so on and so forth. So Art, please lead us with this historical anchor.
All right, so there's not a lot of history of filming yet because it's so new.
Mm-hmm.
The earliest example is the Rodney King thing, and so we already know what happened there. Somebody captured it on videotape. It was played on the news, and then it caused such a backlash that the officers were actually arrested and tried. Of course, they were found not guilty, and we all know what happened after that. But since then, there's been a lot of people who had started to take their video cameras and use it to record police. And it actually culminated in a documentary in 2003 called These Streets Are Watching. there have been a lot of cases where an officer approaches somebody filming and they'll lie about the law in order to intimidate them. If you watch a lot of these videos that are out today, there's one officer who tried to convince a man that there was a new law prohibiting filming of police and threatened to take him to jail if he didn't stop filming. The man turned out to be an attorney who was driving for Uber for extra money. When he told the officer that he was an attorney, the officer found it hard to believe that an attorney would be driving Uber, meaning the officer lied to him because he mistook the man for ignorant. Mm. Another case where a different attorney was filming a violent arrest, a police officer tried to intimidate the man to give up his footage by claiming that failing to do so was obstruction and that he could be charged for it. After about 3 or 4 minutes of tense exchanges, the man was able to walk away without being detained.
All right, I have a question.
Yes.
Is there any in historical, as the development of filming became a part of what is going on with policing and citizens, is there any laws that have been, let's say in the state of California, is there any laws that have been passed?
Yeah.
That represent that particular situation?
There has, and actually I'm going to talk about that, but I will say that it's Senate Bill 411. But so we'll talk about that when I get to it. There's actually a story here on the Silver Strand. There's an area of the beach that was off limits to the public. So back in 2014, I went over there to film like just the sweeping views of the beach and stuff, and I was yelled at by a master at arms who was there on post, who tried to say that I wasn't allowed to film that area of the beach because it was part of a SEAL training facility. Now, I used to stand that post. I used to be a master at arms, and I actually know the law, and I also know that the city of Coronado leases that area to the government, but the city of Coronado still owns it. They don't have exclusive jurisdiction. So because I knew that, and I also knew the my old supervisor's phone number, 545-7418, I was able to basically call and complain.
Well, that's not a cell phone number.
So I called and complained. They called me back and they actually said, okay, yeah, you're right, we apologize. And I was able to go back and film what I wanted.
So do you think that the law enforcement and people that are actually working, do you think that they're confused about the law? Because they seem to keep on combat it a lot.
I think they know the law, but they lie and they use the law to intimidate people. Instead of just saying we don't want you to do that, they'll say it's illegal to do that, or it's there's a new state law, or they'll even go around and say, well, there's a law about audio, or something like that. They'll use all sorts of excuses.
So what is the law?
The law, we'll get to that later.
Oh, you don't want to do it in the historical? We got 2 minutes, man.
Well, I had a whole page worth of stuff. That's why.
Okay.
But let's see, where do we go from here? In 2014, Michael Brown was shot and killed by police in Ferguson, Missouri. Residents filmed Brown's dead body laying on the ground for hours as police conducted their investigation. This angered the community, which began protesting. The incident brought about awareness to the importance of filming police interactions. And in 2012, after the death of Victor Ortega, a Copwatch unit started in San Diego and attempts to recruit a larger activist community in that type of self-defense. They had a rough time recruiting people initially. By the way, we're talking about these two right here. They had a rough time recruiting people initially, and law enforcement actually tried to intimidate them by sending anonymous threatening letters, which the Copwatchers were able to track their IP addresses back down to the San Diego Sheriff's Department. In 2015, Senate Bill 411 was signed into law, which specifically states that recording an officer on duty doesn't violate the law, nor does it constitute reasonable suspicion or probable cause. In June of 2016, there was a man in New York who noticed that there was an officer messing around with his own phone. So he started filming the officer. The officer turned around and detained him when he actually tried to grab the phone out of his hands. And when the guy went nope, he arrested him. And then when he released him later on, they gave him his phone back and the footage was deleted. So this was after, this was even though this was in California, this was in New York. This was this was a year later.
Okay, so every state basically has their own laws.
Their own different, yeah. So California law, actually, there's other law. There was a couple other laws. I think Aaron was talking to me about yesterday, and this one's just a reiteration.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll touch bases on more of those laws as we go. Aaron, right? Jesse, right? Okay, definitely. So we like to sign off for commercial breaks. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Please stay with us. Thank you very much. We off? All right, great. All right, hold my breath. That was a good
So
one.
we're
Sorry, I
still-
kept pushing you to put the law out there, but
Well, I mean,
I
because I
didn't
actually
want the
had a-
time to run out. That's it.
I
That was
actually
what
had
it
a
was.
whole yeah.
We gotta work. You know, it's a time thing, and I just didn't want you not to introduce it. You know, I know you always got
We
your
gotta
spiel.
work with time, man.
Mhm.
Gotta work with time.
Time determines everything. So when you hit 50, you're like, oh, my back, it's because of time.
I feel bad. I feel bad because I didn't get to Scott the car and Ed Foreman.
Well, we'll talk about in the discussion.
Okay.
Totally.
You can actually open some of those discussions up. Or like when I pass it to you, so you can open
Probably
up
do
the
something
discussion
like that.
based on some of the things you didn't touch
Like-
bases on.
Well, like one of the things I wanted to do is I have a whole ACLU thing that they say.
You know, my back hurts a little bit. I wasn't sure what went down. Like, I didn't realize they moved you inside. I was fucking like,
I'm gonna go straight to you, or do you want to end the panel discussion? Because I can go straight to you, and you guys can discuss this, and we'll all jump in on the city hall, or I can shoot it straight to
Well,
her, and we can do the
Yeah, let's
Copwatch
shoot
and
it
outline
straight to
it.
her and then they can bring us in.
Can
Because this is
we-
about
Right, yeah.
Copwatch.
Yeah.
But can I play that alcohol?
Yeah, that is like,
Okay.
just whenever I shoot it, you see it as your time to introduce Copwatch and do that segment, and then after that, we'll end the panel discussion over here. We'll happen to see, we'll talk about a lot of laws about filming, since there's a lot of filming going on, so on and so forth. So I'll go straight to you in the beginning. Work with you? 30 seconds. Do you need a mic to actually play that audio?
Well, I can either do here.
Alright, however you like.
If I don't get a call, I can just plug into the system. Stand by. 5 seconds.
Alright.
You're back.
Welcome back. Thank you very much for sticking with us. My name is Apollo Longo. We are the Maya Quorum. Today, we have Copwatch, and we have the queen of the Copwatch here, who is the Wildcat on the show, and she is here to talk to you more about what they do and the conflicts that they run into trying to do what they do, because I don't know, sometimes law enforcement don't want to be watched. They want their story to be the story that sticks. So with you there, that story kind of changes, and I think that might be the reason why you guys receive a lot of heat for being in certain situations and circumstances, exercising your rights as a citizen. So I like to start by passing straight to Kat. This is your time. Introduce Copwatch, what you guys do. Let's discuss some laws that give you the right to do what you do, though it's allegedly a controversial activity. I don't believe it is. I think it's exercising your rights and making sure that what is going on in our communities is done by the ideals that we have. So, Kat, please take it away.
Sure. You know, I think a lot. I would like Aaron to jump into, because I know that he has a lot to say. He's very passionate about it. So again, our motto: protest, solidarity, love, resistance. It's our form of protest, which is a form of self-defense. It's letting the community know. It's interacting with the community, let them know their rights. It's a form of, as Jesse put it, a form of decolonization in our community from a militarized police force, because that's something that we see all the time. I don't believe, I mean, the reason why we do it, for one, we don't trust police, and we make a point to have that appropriate boundary. And I think City Council was an example of, if we don't film, we won't know.
Yeah.
They won't
Whose
be
story
transparent.
whose narrative will be
We
true.
do work with a audio scanner, which is totally legal. It's what journalists use. So basically, we're cop watchers, we're defenders, we're
Are you guys journalists technically?
Technically journalists, yeah.
Okay.
And anybody who films, records, publishes can be a journalist.
You guys are the evolved journalists.
So, but as being journalists, we have rights. And in city council, our right for Art and I was to make sure Tasha was safe. The reason why we film cops is because we don't trust them to provide the transparency, and it's very prevalent in our community when they're out. Let's say a gang unit would switch to an encrypted scanner channel, meaning we couldn't hear the activity if they get in the area, which is very disheartening. But you got thoughts on that, babe?
We pretty much touched bases on it. Yeah, we're just out here holding our police accountable on the ground where they do their dirty work.
And it's quite, in City Heights, it's always something. I mean, our goal is to keep people safe and keep the community calm, to de-escalate. And, we see 12 officers on one person, and, it's very over the top, the way they're stopping people in City Heights.
What drove you guys to put together Copwatch? And I mean, when did it actually start? How did this form?
So basically, we started as police accountability activists. We tried the whole route with going to city council meetings and going to town hall meetings with the chief of police and all that stuff. We realized real quick that they don't really care what we have to say. They're going to do what they want to do. So we decided to just take it in our own hands and hold them accountable in the streets.
What year was that?
That was probably about 2012, 2013 that we started. The past 3 years, we've really been going hard and trying to make a difference. And I mean, it's about filming the cops and making sure that they don't violate people's rights and stuff like that. But it's also to let them know that we can show up anytime. That we're out in the streets 24/7. We have people all over San Diego to film these cops.
Jesse, I mean, Aaron, I cannot wait until Copwatch gets to a point where you guys have drones.
Right. Hey, and
where you guys have drones.
Believe it or not, there are some people that do have them.
I want this to evolve into something that's a part of our society and community, man, because not everyone can record right away what's going on.
Right.
So just that idea alone makes me feel a little bit safer, because we push for a lot of change in legislations and community review boards and this and that, but what is more powerful than knowing that you are being watched by somebody who is not going to allow your narrative to be what determines what happened, because all their narratives is based on the actual legal procedures that they must take to make sure that they're not accountable at the end of the day. They get away with it, so they do it because there's no one like Copwatch.
And it also empowers the community to so they know that they're not out here alone, that we're watching their back, and
the kids know us when
Yeah.
they show up. They're like, "Hey, Copwatch, yeah." When they show up at the park.
That is awesome.
And it also takes away that stigma of fear. People are afraid of the police, and I think you guys show up. That fear, is not as prevalent.
Mark ourselves, or identified, and like this is what we're with y'all.
I think the fear of the anxiety reverses. That's why they feel that way. They feel what we feel when you're not around. When you're around, all of a sudden the police officer feels, I have to do a certain thing a certain way because I can't get away with doing it a certain way, and that's probably why they call it controversial what you guys do. That's probably where that comes from, because that anxiety that it gives them while they're performing their tests.
We talked to a journalist the day after, and he had talked to the chief of police, and regarding us, he basically thought that we were purposely causing trouble in order to catch them doing wrong, which is totally not even like there was totally like as if we planned it, which is not even like.
I was like, do your job.
Yeah.
Do your job. And I want to hear a little bit more from Jesse, who's been filming since 2017. He's kind of new to the game. Is that true or not really?
Yeah, I've only been cop watching for a little bit.
How do you like it?
I think it's very necessary in every city in Southern California, with the way that the police are militarized and also on the side of a lot of crazy people that run to these rallies and just look for violence, and they got the police at their backs.
Right.
So I figured just seeing the rise of just this new wave of just police brutality, fascism, and just the bullshit going on right now that need to be held accountable. You know what I mean?
Right.
And a lot of been watching their videos for years, and I feel like it's something that's very much needed in communities like City Heights, because if the camera's not there, the police are going to do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, before they had all these body cameras that they don't turn on, they just take you to the side of the car where there was no
Do
camera.
what they do. So my question is, are you guys planning to grow? What is the plan about, becoming more than just, let's say, City Heights? So you're looking to do something else on, or you guys looking to
we're always looking to recruit. I think this is the big reason why we wanted to come on the show and just say that, anybody who's able-bodied and wants to make a difference and is willing to shadow us and do a community walk. Jesse is in Imperial Beach. We do have somebody that was interested in doing some filming where they're home. They're from East Lake community. We have to encourage this type of protests because and it's just personal, our perception is just we can't wait for humanity to be voted on.
Mm-hmm.
We can't wait for people to decide, people above the city council that sits on, just kind of weighs out.
Is this a nonprofit, or what is the design of the organization?
We're not like a nonprofit status.
Uh-huh.
We just do this for free. It's volunteer work.
Are you guys actually have? Is this basically you guys licensed? Basically, it's an actual. You guys just
With press.
No.
With
Yeah,
press.
basically
Press.
anybody with the camera.
Uh-huh.
Our First Amendment says that everybody has the right to freedom of press. So anybody can be a journalist, anybody can be press. I have actually taken the extra step to get my San Diego police issued press pass, which is kind of ironic because
Right.
even with all the credentials that they require, I'm still not allowed to film them or get behind the tape, which that press pass allows you to do. So they're very selective. There's also other journalists who kind of do the same thing as us, holding police accountable, and they've had their press passes revoked by the San Diego Police Department. So right now, that whole thing is an issue because nobody should be allowed to issue press passes, especially San Diego Police, because obviously there's going to be some controversial articles and stories on the police, and it basically leaves it up to them on who's a journalist and who's not. So
they get to decide who views them.
But like I
It's
said,
very nice.
it's completely unlawful for them to even issue press passes because everybody's press. That's our First Amendment right. Especially in this day and age with technology and
So, in what kind of
YouTube.
situation would you need a press pass and you can't just be a journalist showing up? What kind of circumstance would?
Basically, to get the press pass, you have to prove or give an excuse of why you need to get behind the yellow tape. But like I said, most people with press passes, most journalists, most news reporters, they don't even get behind the yellow tape. So the rules are ridiculous, and technically it's really not up to law enforcement to decide if somebody is in danger or not. There's a penal code, and I forget what it is, but it's duly authorized press. And that basically says that anybody who is press has a right to film, and it's not up to the law enforcement to decide or to look out for that person's being in danger.
Yeah, that shines light on a lot. It really does. You have anything to add to that, guy?
Goodness gracious, do you have anything to say with that?
You can run that video. I think the
Oh,
video.
oh, yeah.
Talk about the
Oh.
video. Apparently there was a video.
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
gonna-
Alfonso,
It is
rally at Ground Zero that made its way all the way to a Russian broadcast. And I think it was.
And it is 3 minutes, but I'm wondering if I can try to.
Well, in the meantime, I had realized that there's we had talked yesterday, and I realized you can boil the job down to about 3 words. It's accountability, de-escalation, and prevention. Accountability, because you're trying to hold these people accountable when they're in reality, there's very little accountability for police nowadays. De-escalation, because a lot of these videos I've seen of these guys cop watching, there's a lot of times where I see them in the beginning acting aggressive until they realize they're being filmed. Then they change their tone. Prevention, well, that prevents injuries.
Definitely.
So
So
I
this is the
have-
video from, go ahead, let us know. Is this a Russian TV station?
So this was our reporting from when the protests were happening in Alcohol after your brother's passing, and it made it to the RT Russia, the amount of less lethal rounds that they were firing at the protesters. So at least it put a spotlight on what they felt about somebody's engagement after
Definitely.
somebody.
And how the video was gotten was it through like a cop watching style
It was our cop
documentary? A lot of the
watcher.
stuff that you
Yeah,
have, the
like
video
our-
that you had is what made it over there, showing the
Pretty much.
importance of this perspective of what actually happens.
What they feel about First Amendment.
Exactly. It said it.
Yeah.
So it. Yeah, I think it'll be a powerful video, and you guys are doing a wonderful job, by the way.
I agree.
No warning. It was the third month of restrictions on alcohol over the shooting of an unarmed black man by police. Clashes started when authorities declared the rally there unlawful, which prompted protesters to launch into the officers. We spoke with another eyewitness about the events that had escalated.
I was hiding behind an electrical box when they pushed us down through this alley that's behind me, and that's when they started shooting the beanbags and threw some more tear gas. I saw the first guy, he got hit a couple times with the paintballs. He went to the ground. A man with a kittay held him, and at that point he threw a tear gas grenade, like literally right on top of that. He pulled him away, and then he dropped him on the knees and was able to breathe very well. And then I got a couple of souvenirs here. You can see it very well. These are the beanbags they shot, shotgun shells, tear gas grenades right here. I have a mask and a bandana too. I took it off for a second to wipe the fog out of glasses, and it got my eyes and felt it in the back of my throat, that's for sure.
Come on.
So in the video, he just has everything laid out.
Okay.
That's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. We want to show a side that police may not necessarily want the general public to see.
Yeah, and Kat, it's crazy how national news. For me, I'm from Uganda. I've seen a lot of news from other countries, and sometimes I watch them regularly, and they like to report more. It's almost a complete opposite of the narrative that the American conglomerate media gives to everyone, keeps them hypnotized. It's more of the raw truth of what's going on. They're not trying to side with anyone. So for a broadcast station in Russia to choose something that you guys do on the ground and use that perspective to deliver what is actually happening here with shootings of unarmed African Americans it's really, it gives me gives me faith that what you guys are doing is actually right in a certain way, you know? And that's why I really support you guys.
Cool.
So yeah, I think now we can hand the microphone over to Tasha and we can get to discussing this National City Council meeting, what transpired and what led to you having to wear that wristband and my guy over here having back spasms probably. So please go ahead and carry us away on that, Tasha.
Yeah, I think, to bring context, we met with the chief of police, his assistant chief, his captain, the assistant city attorney, and 2 private attorneys, along with 4 of Earl McNeil's family members, his aunt who raised him, and his 3 cousins, their attorney, they're a local activist, and myself. And during the course of that entire meeting, Chief Rodriguez smirked and smiled, was condescending to the family, interrupted as they were talking, And as the local activist was talking and
I have a
myself.
question, Tasha. Did this happen prior to the meeting or
Correct.
during the meeting?
This happened prior to
Prior to you
the
getting
city
up there and
council meeting.
speaking
The day
to the
This
before.
members?
happened the day
The
before.
day before, okay.
And so the meeting wound up, I had to stop the meeting once to ask people not to be disrespectful to one another, to not interrupt, really, talking to the chief of police because,
Measlight or his?
this is
his
Rodriguez.
assistants? Oh, the chief of police of
Rodriguez of
National
National
City.
Yes, this is
City.
National
Okay.
City.
We all met and we thought that it was a meeting to kind of help the family understand what happened to Earl McNeil in the care and custody of National City PD. The National City chief said he was there to answer questions from the family. He avoided and didn't answer questions. By the time things were already escalating, the aunt got up and walked out. She had been crying. This cousin, was crying, asking, just tell us what happened. The meeting was stopped. We all got up, and I told the chief he should have never called the meeting. He had been smirking and smiling the entire meeting to a family who has to bury their loved one. And it was not professional.
What was he smirking about? What did
We
he
have
find
no idea.
amusing about a
He
family
never
that has
said.
lost someone in a way that they don't even know because it's kept a secret? What is amusing about it?
He never said. He never said. He smirked as I talked. And I told him that, he should resign and walked out. And the attorney of the family also, he walked out last. He said he mentioned to him that he noticed too that he had smirked and smiled the entire time. So when we get to the National City Council meeting, again, I get up to talk. I kind of knew I was going to go over it, but many people have gone over in the National City meetings and they're never treated in the manner that I'm treated. They're never, they go to recess and they come back. People get to calm down, and you come back and you gather yourself. And this particular time, the mayor went to recess, but it didn't appear like he went to recess. He went to recess when it appeared like when I started talking about, the chief of police resigning and the corruption. He asked to have me removed at some point. The officers came up, the two plainclothes officers came up. One even said me by name, Tasha, can we step outside? And I think I said no. And then, I still began to talk and tell the chief he needed to resign. At that point, they handcuff me, and the handcuffs are too tight. And they're as they handcuff you, they pull you, and so they're pulling what appears to be my arms up, and it's hurting.
That's the technique
And that's
that
kind
they
of why I
use to
say
try
you're
to
gonna
get you
kill me
to
too.
move. Yeah.
And so they lead me to the stairwell and lead me down to the stairs.
And this is where
And this is where-
they weren't allowed to film anymore.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
blocking everyone off.
And this is where Raphael, it looked like nobody knew where they were taking me, but Raphael was already approaching to come up the steps. And we were coming really, really fast. They were moving me fast. And you could tell Raphael, he didn't have time to really think and react. And he sat down and kind of pushed to the wall, like, just go past me, but kind of like, there was room to go past him. And they began to pull me and kick while they're kicking him and hitting him in the back of his back and
Was
his
that to
head.
get him out of the way so that he could
Yeah, they're
move through,
saying,
or did they
I mean,
just
I
see
don't know, I
like
don't know that
he was
that's.
with you and they just?
I didn't know who he was at first.
Oh,
So
wow.
I kept saying, when I even talked to people, I said, it looked like Raphael, but things were happening so fast.
Mhm.
I don't know who the guy was. Just can somebody figure out who he was and if he's okay? Because I was screaming because they were pulling me. But I said, stop kicking him. Stop. Like, why did you kick him? Why did you hit him? Because that's what they were doing with his back to them. So it was like he did like this, and it was just immediately a kick and a hit to the head. And so I don't know if Raphael could talk about it more, because I saw him roll or fall down the stairs and started saying, film this, and then they kind of like picked him up and just threw him out the door.
So, Raphael, please share your story with us. What were you doing at the City Hall meeting? What was happening there? Because sometimes people think that we were there to actually cause this, and it was pre.
I've been advocating for cop watching for a long time. I've done it myself on myself before Facebook Live was around, and for the family, the many families really that have been taken away, and that's what I was there to do. I was there to support the families, and I was there to make sure that there's accountability to what's happening. When I got there, I was watching the live stream, but then it cut out because she wasn't, Tasha wasn't filmed at that time, but I was still, walking up the stairs, not knowing where I was headed. Next thing you know, I see the officers, like 6 officers, pushing Tasha down the stairs, and there's nowhere for me to go. I don't know what to do. I turn around, walk downstairs, and I sit down. And when I sat down, I thought they would stop, or they would move to the side or get around me. But next thing you know, they're hitting me. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know they pulled Tasha to the side and then started hitting me. I thought they were just handling me with their hands. I didn't know what was happening.
So there was a total escalation of what was happening.
Yeah.
By the way, we actually have a guest on the phone. Real quick, his name's Edward Foreman. I think we should bring him up. Or is he still on the phone?
He's a fellow cop watcher with us in City Heights.
Yeah, he's a fellow cop watcher from City Heights.
KBLK. Hello.
You need the microphone.
Hi.
Is this Michaela, another fellow cop watcher
Yeah.
with us? Hey, hon. Thank you so much for waiting.
You're
So
welcome.
on the phone we have our part of City Heights Copwatch. They're with the Movement Productions, and Edward Foreman can probably talk about retaliation that happened to him.
Oh, space.
Oh. All right. So go ahead, hon. Mika.
Hi, so my name is Michaela Zelder. I'm one of the cop watchers here in City Heights. We have been filming police since 2015. We both kind of started because of our own experiences with police brutality and police harassment, and we both, felt like the more, our cameras are our most powerful weapon.
Right.
They don't like being on film. They don't like, the moment they notice that camera, their attitudes, their actions, change completely.
Right.
So we believe, that was our strongest form of protest.
And do you want to, Mika? Do you want to talk about Edward's detainment that day? How he was threatened with arrest for practicing his amendment, right?
Okay, so on June 1st, my husband heard on the scanner that there was a side call in one of the apartment complexes across the street from the Mid-City Police Department. And he decided that he was going to go over, and film. So when he arrived at the scene, he said there's no cops present. There's, a few people, hanging out, nothing. So he says, I'll wait a few minutes. If cops don't show up within this amount of time, I'm going to just go back home. He said he noticed since they were, drinking, he said, for my own safety, I'm going to stand across the street in front of the police department by the trees. He said, within the time that he was standing there, he noticed a police officer in the police yard leaning up against his police vehicle and just staring at him. He says, at first, I didn't say anything. I let time pass by. 15 minutes passed by, and he turned over and asked him, what the F are you looking at, or what the F you want, in a calm, manner. This officer pretty much had his ego hurt, tried to say that it's against the law to cuss, it's against the law to film. So when he finally does make contact with my husband, he, is making the big issue. He's lying on camera. There's, in the footage, you hear him change the story. He says that there was children walking by. To make a long story short, he wrote him up after holding him for almost an hour and calling every agency you can think of, from Interpol to, whatever agency they're calling, to try to see what they were charging with. They ended up writing him a citation for a city code violation. It was MC, and it was pretty much where city workers are not allowed to cuss, but the First Amendment, covers that.
Right.
When we got to court, the first time it was then supposed to be in the arraignment hearing. He pled 9 guilty after a non-speedy trial, so they set the court date. We go to the second court date. It's another arraignment hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So we receive a whole new court date. On this last court date, and we have the audio from that court hearing where the officer once again is changing authority in front of the judge.
Right.
So we present the judge with the video, the first 3 minutes of the interaction with the police officer. Right off the bat, we noticed the judge, he's kind of like, he made a face as to why that was even in his courtroom. When the officer was given another chance to speak, I had brought up that it was such against the law to film, to use 2 radios, to even cuss at police, and why was it that I wasn't ticketed? But my husband was placed in the back of a police car, ticketed, harassed, and the officer said that it was because had he written me up a ticket, the situation would have escalated because I was being violent. To me, that made no sense, because usually when someone's being violent or erratic, they're placed in cuffs in the back of a police car.
Mm-hmm.
So the judge said that he was going to review the evidence, the case once I was presented, and within he would get to us. He would send a decision in the mail and get to us by mail. So months goes by and we receive a letter in the mail stating that my husband was found not guilty in this case. Now, we highly believe that a lot of it was the footage. Had we not had any of the footage that we had that day,
Right.
I would have gotten away with writing that ticket.
That's
With the
true.
harassment and everything. But
Yeah.
because we had that footage, we were able to show the misconduct of this officer.
Right, and it really seems like, they don't like being filmed because that's when they can do whatever they want. I mean, it wasn't until we were blocked from filming Tasha's arrest when Tasha and Raphael were heard.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's their game.
That is a game, and I'd like to thank you very much, Mika, for sharing your story today with us. I appreciate it gladly, and yes, that will be all for that particular segment of the call. And now I'd like to just wrap up with Tasha and Raphael about, what do we do next? What's the next move? Are you attempting to pursue any kind of a legal offensive towards what happened to you? And Tasha, is that something that you're possibly looking to do, or what's happening here?
To be honest with you, legal routes are always an option, but to be honest, I think real justice is in the streets, and unless we get in the streets and actually push back and make sure that they know and they understand that they're not only being watched all the time, but that we're gonna hold them accountable, and that we're gonna demand that we get these cops in prison and for murdering people and covering up and doing things that are way out of bounds. We need to put that pressure forward.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm advocating for.
Tasha?
For me, I think I think we need to advocate for all of that. I think that when you do something that you're not supposed to do, there's consequences. And we as citizens have consequences. I have a court date August 1st at 8 a.m. for the consequence of disrupting a public assembly. And whether or not that consequence moves forwards is not up to me, right? But I think that law enforcement also needs to have consequences when they violate people's rights. I didn't have rights. I followed every physical command that they gave me, but when they began to question me, I didn't want to talk to them, and they continued to question me. They continued to ask me questions. I never knew that people were outside of the hospital. I never knew my own attorney was trying to get in to see me. I never knew I had that right because they never told me.
It's not their job to tell you. They will not tell you. They don't care to tell you.
It is their job to tell me
They don't
because
want to.
as law enforcement, they have protocols and proper ways of doing things, and this was improper.
They're attempting to incriminate you.
And so, my thing is I told them I didn't want. They never de-escalated the situation. When I told them that the cuffs were too tight 6 or 7 times, they never tried to loosen the cuffs. She slammed the door in my face. She just wanted my name, and you have my name. My name was read. Everybody knew my name. And so again, it was the way in which they handled me. Why did I have to take my shoes off? Why was I made to walk barefoot the entire time I was with National City PD? I had shoes. Humanity was throughout the time that they handled me, and now I know why. Earl McNeil's hands were swollen and his wrists were bruised because I too had the cuffs too tight. And all of this seemed very retaliatory. I was a book and release. You could have released me. They could have written me a ticket, but instead they went through all of these motions when I was telling them that I was physically hurt by having,
handled that terribly.
they didn't. So my blood pressure was 160 over 106 when the ambulance got there. And so, again, the way they were handling it was like they didn't care. They didn't believe me. And these are the things that we see across the nation.
They always make it worse.
I agree. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone. This particular segment of the show is over. I think we're going to move to the green room to continue a little bit more in these discussions. We'll be streaming on Facebook Live for that particular, the aftermath discussion where we'll sit down in the next room. Facebook.